Pennsylvania. Everyone knows Philly, Pittsburgh, Hershey, but hidden in the hills are entire towns that just vanished. Places where thousands lived and worked, now nothing but crumbling foundations and empty streets. Some were swallowed by fires still burning underground, others bulldozed for plants that never needed them. Today, we're counting down 13 ghost towns in Pennsylvania Google Maps won't show you. Number 13. Centralia, the town that's been on fire since 1962. Let's start with the most infamous one. Centralia isn't just abandoned, it's literally burning from the inside out. Back in May 1962, somebody had the brilliant idea to clean up the town's garbage dump by setting it on fire. Standard practice back then, except this dump happened to be sitting right over an exposed coal vein. The fire spread into the labyrinth of abandoned coal mines beneath the town, and that was pretty much game over. For years, nobody really understood how bad it was. The fire was underground, out of sight, slowly consuming the coal seams that crisscrossed beneath the valley. Attempts to extinguish it failed spectacularly. They pumped water into the mines. They dumped sand and non-combustible materials into the shafts. Between 1962 and 1982, the government spent $7 million trying to put it out. Nothing worked. By 1979, a gas station owner checked his underground fuel tank and found the gasoline was reading 172 degrees Fahrenheit. That's when people started paying attention. Sinkholes started opening up without warning. One almost swallowed a 12-year-old boy in 1981. Carbon monoxide levels went through the roof. Houses developed cracks in their foundations as the ground beneath them literally shifted and burned. The government finally threw in the towel in 1983, allocated $42 million to relocate residents, and by 1992, Pennsylvania basically said everyone out and condemned the whole place. The U.S. Postal Service revoked Centralia's zip code in 2002. Route 61, which ran through town, was permanently closed in 1993 because the underground pillars holding up the pavement were destroyed by fire. Today, fewer than 5 people still live there. Stubborn souls who refuse to leave even when the government claimed their homes through eminent domain. They fought in court and won the right to stay in a 2013 settlement, allowed to remain until they die, after which the state takes everything. You can still drive through what's left of Centralia. Sidewalks lead to nowhere. Curbs outline streets where houses once stood. And if you're there on the right day, you'll see smoke rising through cracks in the ground like something out of a horror movie. The famous Graffiti Highway, a section of abandoned Route 61 covered in colorful spray paint, was actually buried under dirt mounds in 2020 to discourage trespassers. The fire is expected to burn for another 250 years, by the way. Just sitting there, smoldering away beneath empty lots where families used to barbecue on summer weekends. Centralia peaked at 2,761 residents in 1890, had around 1,000 people in 1980, and now has 5. Number 12. Yawn City, from 15,000 people to literally nothing in 3 years. Here's a town with a name that sounds like an insult, and honestly, it kind of earned it. Yawn sprang up in January 1865 when oil was struck on a hillside in Venango County. Within 9 months, 15,000 fortune seekers descended on this place like locusts. By some estimates, the population hit 20,000 by December of that year. The town was incorporated as a borough on November 30th, 1865. It had 54 hotels, 3 churches, a newspaper, a 1,100-seat theater with chandelier lighting by Tiffany, and a post office so busy it became the 3rd largest in Pennsylvania. Think about that for a second. Within months of oil being discovered, Yawn went from literally nothing to having a larger post office than most established cities in the state. Murphy's Theater, the biggest building in town, had an orchestra, a 40-foot stage, and hosted performances from traveling actors. The place was making money, hand over fist. But here's the thing about boom towns. They bust just as fast as they boom. Oil production peaked quickly and then started declining almost immediately. Speculators who'd paid absurd prices for land found themselves stuck with worthless property. Banks collapsed. Then the fires started. Between August 1865 and December 1866, 17 major fires ripped through Pithole, causing nearly $2 million in damages. Buildings burned so fast they couldn't be rebuilt. By 1866, the oil started drying up. The price of oil crashed, and people left as quickly as they'd arrived. By January 1866, the population had dropped to 4,000. By 1870, only 237 people remained. In 1879, the entire town, once valued at $2 million, was sold back to the county for $4.37, the price of a steak dinner. Today, you can walk the mowed paths where streets used to be. The Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission maintains the site, and there's a visitors center with a massive diorama showing what Pithole looked like at its peak. There are interpretive signs explaining what stood where, but otherwise, just grass and trees. Nature took it all back like Pithole never even existed. One historian called it the most remarkable town in world history for how fast it rose and fell. That might be hyperbole, but when you're standing in an empty field where 20,000 people once lived, it's hard to argue. Number 11. Yellow Dog Village, abandoned when the water ran out. Yellow Dog Village has one of the strangest names on this list, and it comes from something even stranger. Yellow Dog Contracts. Built in the 1920s by the Pittsburgh Limestone Company, this was classic company housing. The deal was simple. We'll build you homes, raise your wages, give you a swimming pool and baseball field, but you don't join a union. Pro-union workers called these agreements Yellow Dog Contracts, and rather than take offense, the workers just embraced it and named their town Yellow Dog Village. For decades, it worked. Families lived in identical two-story duplexes arranged along dirt roads. Kids played in the streets, swam in what was supposedly one of the first in-ground pools in the Wyoming Valley, and played baseball on company-built fields. The quarry kept running. Life was good. Even when the limestone ran out in the 1950s, people stuck around because the old mine got converted into the world's largest mushroom farm. Seriously, the same underground caverns that once produced limestone started producing mushrooms instead. The town adapted and survived. But in 2009, E. coli was found in the drinking water. A snake had died in the well and contaminated the entire water supply. Fixing it would have required hooking up to a municipal sewage system, which was prohibitively expensive. By 2011, everyone had been forced to leave, and Yellow Dog Village was officially abandoned. Now it sits frozen in time, furniture still inside the houses, toys scattered in bedrooms, wallpaper peeling off the walls. Some rooms are painted purple, others have floral wallpaper from the 1960s, and you can still see where families hung pictures on the walls. The current owner, who bought the entire village with plans to restore it as a historical site, offers guided tours and photography sessions. It's one of the few ghost towns you can legally explore without getting arrested for trespassing, which makes it pretty unique. Walking through those houses is surreal. It really does feel like everyone just got up one day and left everything behind. Number 10. Concrete City. 20 houses that refused to be demolished. Concrete City sounds like a dystopian novel, but it's real, and it's exactly what it sounds like. Built in 1911 near Nanticoke in Luzerne County, this was company housing of the future for select employees of the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Railroad. And when I say select, I mean it. Only 40 families got to live here, the cream of the crop. English-speaking technicians, shopmen, and other skilled workers deemed important enough to deserve these modern concrete homes. 20 concrete duplexes were arranged around a central plaza with a swimming pool, tennis courts, baseball field, electric streetlights, landscaped yards, the whole 9 yards. It was supposed to be durable, sanitary, fire-resistant. The future of housing. An early example of international-style architecture in America, all clean lines and reinforced concrete. Except concrete from 1911 wasn't exactly waterproof. The material was porous, and moisture seeped through the walls constantly. Condensation formed on the inside. Everything was perpetually damp. Residents were basically living in cold, wet boxes that never dried out. You can imagine how pleasant that was during Pennsylvania winters. In 1924, just 11 years after opening, the railroad decided it didn't want to pay for the expensive sewer upgrades the state was requiring, so they abandoned the whole thing. Just walked away from their futuristic housing experiment. They tried to demolish it, but here's the irony. The concrete was built so strong that demolition was harder and more expensive than just leaving it there. So they left it there. Today, Concrete City is a playground for graffiti artists and urban explorers. Every surface is covered in paint. Some of it's actually pretty good art. The structures are hollow and crumbling, slowly being swallowed by weeds and trees. Locals use it for paintball games and parties, which explains the beer cans scattered everywhere. It's like a post-apocalyptic art gallery that nobody asked for. And despite being designated a historical site in 1998, it continues to decay because nobody quite knows what to do with 20 indestructible concrete buildings in the middle of nowhere. Number 9, Elvira, the town seized for a war that ended before they needed it. Elvira was a peaceful farming village in Union County. Families had been there for generations, tending crops, raising livestock, living quiet lives. Population was small, maybe a few hundred people, but it was home. Then came World War II. In 1942, the U.S. government knocked on doors and told everyone they had to leave. The military needed the land to build a munitions depot to store explosives for the war effort. Some say residents got 48 hours notice to pack up and get out. Others say they were compensated fairly and relocated to nearby communities. The truth probably falls somewhere in between, but either way, the government seized the entire town through eminent domain, and Elvira ceased to exist. They built 149 massive concrete bunkers shaped like igloos to house ammunition and explosives. These weren't small structures. Some were large enough to drive trucks into. The plan was to use Elvira as a major storage facility for the war effort, keeping munitions safe and ready for deployment. Except by the time construction finished, the war was winding down, and they barely used them. D-Day happened. The Allies pushed through Europe. Japan surrendered. And suddenly, the U.S. government had 149 massive bunkers sitting in the middle of rural Pennsylvania with nothing to put in them. Today, the land is State Game Lands 252. You can still see the bunkers scattered throughout the woods, silent, moss-covered reminders of a town that was erased from the map for a war effort that didn't really need it. 2 old cemeteries are all that's left of the community that once thrived there. Headstones dating back to the 1700s, still maintained by descendants of the families who were forced out. Oh, and here's a fun fact. Some of the first nuclear waste from the atomic bomb program, from Los Alamos and the Manhattan Project, was stored in those Elvira bunkers after the war. So this quiet farming village got seized by the government, turned into a munitions depot that was barely used, and then became a nuclear waste storage site. You really can't make this stuff up. Number 8. Frick's Lock, evacuated for a nuclear plant. Frick's Lock was an 18th century village along the Schuylkill Canal in Chester County. Some of the buildings dated back to the American Revolutionary War. It was a quiet, historic little place that survived the decline of the canal system, outlasted the railroads, and was chugging along just fine into the 20th century. Then, in the 1960s, PECO, the power company, decided to build the Limerick nuclear power plant right across the river. Residents were either bought out or, depending on who you ask, given short notice to evacuate. By the time the plant went online in 1986, everyone was gone. The buildings were just boarded up and left to rot. For years, Frick's Lock became a hotspot for vandals, ghost hunters, and urban explorers. It got so bad that in 2008, the old lock tender's house, built in 1824, burned down in a fire. The place developed a reputation for being haunted, which didn't help. Today, it's fenced off and posted with no trespassing signs. The East Coventry Historical Commission offers occasional guided tours. But outside of those, you're not getting in. Number 7. Scotia, Andrew Carnegie's Iron Town, swallowed by the woods. Deep in the forests outside State College, you'll find the ruins of Scotia, an iron mining village with ties to Andrew Carnegie himself. Founded in 1881, Scotia was built to extract iron ore from the surrounding hills. The town grew quickly with company housing, a general store, and all the infrastructure needed to support mining operations. For a while, business was good, but the quality of the ore started declining, and economic challenges mounted. Mining operations shut down, and Scotia began its slow fade into oblivion. There was a brief revival during World War II when they needed every scrap of iron they could get, but once the war ended, so did Scotia. Today, the land is part of State Game Lands 176. Nature has reclaimed most of it, but if you hike through the Scotia Barrens, you can still find concrete ruins from the old mining operations, remnants of the railroad grade, and scattered foundations hidden among the trees. It's peaceful now, but there's something eerie about walking through a place where an entire community just vanished. Number 6. Rausch Gap, a coal town lost in the wilderness. Rausch Gap was another coal mining village, this one in Lebanon County near the Appalachian Trail. Founded in 1828, the town flourished for decades, eventually growing to around 1,000 residents. But by 1910, it was completely abandoned. The coal ran out, the jobs disappeared, and people left for greener pastures. Today, the ruins of Rausch Gap sit in St. Anthony's Wilderness along a scenic rail trail. There's not much left. A few building foundations, a cemetery with weathered headstones, but hikers still stumble across remnants of the town as they pass through. It's one of those ghost towns that feels more like a whisper than a shout. You could walk right past it without even knowing 1,000 people once called this place home. Number 5. Petroleum Center, the wickedest town east of the Mississippi. If Pithole was wild, Petroleum Center was absolutely unhinged. Founded in 1866 during the oil boom, Petroleum Center quickly grew to 3,000 residents. It had banks, churches, hotels, a theater, and a reputation for being the roughest, toughest, most lawless place in Pennsylvania. Contemporaries called it the wickedest town east of the Mississippi. President Ulysses S. Grant even visited in 1871, presumably to see what all the fuss was about. But like Pithole, the oil dried up fast. By 1873, just 7 years after it was founded, Petroleum Center was essentially abandoned. Today, it's part of Oil Creek State Park. There's a self-guided walking tour with interpretive signs, but the only visible remnant of the original town is the old bank steps. Everything else is gone, reclaimed by the forest. Number 4. Eckley Miners Village, the ghost town that's technically still alive. Eckley is a bit different from the others on this list because it's not completely abandoned. It's preserved as a living museum. Founded in 1854, Eckley was a coal mining village like so many others in Pennsylvania. Rows of identical company houses, a general store, a church, the whole setup. Mining operations wound down over the decades, and by the mid-20th century, Eckley was on its way to becoming a ghost town. Then, in 1969, the movie The Molly Maguires, starring Sean Connery, was filmed there, and the production company actually built and restored several structures for the film. After that, the state stepped in and turned Eckley into a historical site. Today, about 20 people still live there, mostly descendants of the original mining families, but it operates as a museum. You can tour the village, see the original buildings, and get a glimpse of what life was like for coal miners in the 19th century. It's not quite a ghost town, but it's not exactly a thriving community either. It's caught somewhere in between, frozen in time for visitors to explore. Number 3. Ricketts, the lumber town nature took back. Ricketts was built in 1890 as a lumber mill company town in Sullivan and Wyoming counties. Named after Robert Bruce Ricketts, who owned most of the land and timber, the town was constructed to support sawmills operated by the Trexler and Terrell Lumber Company. At its peak, Ricketts had 800 residents and railroad lines running straight to the mills. The problem with lumber towns is that eventually you run out of trees. By 1913, the mills shut down. The last house was torn down in the 1930s. Today, Ricketts is part of what became Ricketts Glen State Park, one of the most beautiful places in Pennsylvania with waterfalls that'll take your breath away. But the town itself? Completely gone. A few scattered ruins remain if you know where to look, but otherwise it's like Ricketts never existed. Number 2. Concrete bunkers and empty roads. The abandoned Pennsylvania Turnpike. Okay, this one's not technically a town, but it's too bizarre not to mention. There's a 13-mile section of the original Pennsylvania Turnpike that was abandoned in 1968 when a bypass was built. Two tunnels along the route, Sidling Hill and Rays Hill, created traffic bottlenecks, so they just built a new road and left this section to rot. Now it's a non-maintained bike trail that cuts through the woods, complete with abandoned tunnels you can ride or walk through. It's eerie, apocalyptic, and weirdly beautiful. It's not a ghost town, but it's definitely a ghost highway. A relic of mid-century infrastructure planning that's now home to graffiti, hikers, and people who like exploring places time forgot. Number 1, the one you've never heard of, Landris. Let's end with a ghost town so obscure that even ghost town enthusiasts forget about it. Landris was a small settlement in Tioga County that existed in the late 1800s and early 1900s. It never had more than a few dozen residents, but it was there, a tiny blip on the map serving loggers and farmers in the area. Then it just faded. No dramatic fire, no mine collapse, no government seizure. People left, buildings decayed, and Landris quietly disappeared. Today, there's almost nothing left. Maybe a foundation or two if you're lucky, but it's a reminder that not every ghost town goes out with a bang. Some just slip away into the woods, forgotten by everyone except local historians who keep records of places that no longer exist. So there you have it, 13 ghost towns in Pennsylvania that Google Maps won't show you. Some burned, some drowned, some were seized by the government, and some just faded when the work dried up. Pennsylvania's ghost towns are reminders that nothing lasts forever. Towns that housed thousands are now just empty fields and crumbling concrete. But they're also incredible pieces of history, frozen moments you can still visit if you know where to look. If you enjoyed this, hit that like button and subscribe for more hidden history. Got a favorite Pennsylvania ghost town we didn't cover? Drop it in the comments. Thanks for watching.